MMR isn't bad for Dead by Daylight because it doesn't work. MMR is bad because it does work, and I'm going to tell you what happens when it works. I assume most people already know, but just really quickly, if you didn't, MMR stands for Matchmaking Rating, and SBMM stands for Skill-Based Matchmaking, which again, basically the same thing, it's just got a more pleasant euphemism to it by adding the word skill. Matchmaking rating is a staple in symmetrical competitive games. Overwatch, League of Legends, CSGO, chess, that's just to name a few. With most, if not all of DBD's player base having a background in these symmetrically competitive games, it's only natural to feel uncomfortable in an asymmetrical horror setting where the matchmaking fits asymmetry and horror rather than symmetry and competition. I've previously made a video essay diving into an anthropological book called The Storytelling Animal that details how Dead by Daylight's asymmetry and horror are perfectly accentuated by its horror and asymmetrical matchmaking and why that benefits the game greatly. So I don't have a lot of time in this video to talk about why current matchmaking is good, but we need to move right into why MMR would hurt the game. First off, let me remind you the last time an asymmetrical game tried to be competitive and symmetrical in a weird way. Basically, if you've ever watched any competitive match of Dead by Daylight, you get a sneak peek at the end result of matchmaking. Survivor resources are incredibly survivor-sided if everyone on the survivor team knows and understands how to use their resources efficiently. In competitive Dead by Daylight, most of the killers and their powers simply aren't viable. You have to pick a killer that can delete some of the survivors' agency, it can delete the impact of their game knowledge. For example, a nurse who can just blink accurately and there's no counterplay unless the nurse counterplays herself by missing a blink that would otherwise be a guaranteed hit. That's how competitive Dead by Daylight plays out. People rush gens and call out the killer's location and they take turns unhooking, and it's a very stale game that lacks mischief and mayhem. However, the title of this video is Dead by Spirit, not Dead by Nurse, and I'll tell you why. In every single symmetrical competitive game I've ever played, the most common things that are always used is whatever has the lowest risk with the highest reward. I'm not saying Spirit is the best killer, I'm saying she's the most accessible of the best killers. She has the lowest skill floor of any high tier killer. And if you think you've already seen a lot of Spirits now, wait until your matchmaking goes up. To further cement that this is what's going to happen, during one of the last MMR tests, I attempted to play every single killer in Dead by Daylight, and I found my most played killers were the low tier M1 killers like Pig and Clown, and it would only match me against a full 4-man team that literally had well over 1,000 hours, some of them 3,000 or 5,000, and it was just, they all used resources effectively, and I was like, I need a hag trap or a nurse blink or something to take them down because the M1 goofy low tier killers simply are not viable. And other killers will figure this out as well. You see, anybody with a high enough MMR with a low tier M1 killer where you can use your game knowledge or your loops or your palettes or whatever you want, they simply will stop playing those killers. Your MMR will raise so high that you're just never going to see those killers again. You're going to be left with the high tiers, and most of those high tiers are going to be Spirits. It's true, you may occasionally get camped to first hook, death on first hook by a hag in her 3-gen, or you may occasionally get run down by a god nurse with amazing blinks, or if you're very lucky, you might be blessed by a blight. But between those rare matches, it's going to be Spirit, 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 and I think maybe some twins peppered in because their skill floor is pretty low where they can just camp hooks for free while still chasing people off gens, which is insane. But I still think it's mostly going to be Spirits. Dead by Daylight will no longer be a horror game. It's going to be a horror-themed competitive game where your matches are pretty stale. It's just going to be killers that can negate your resources and your game knowledge. You're going to hold M1. You're going to get run down. You may win an occasional coin flip, but it's going to be pretty oppressive, pretty stale. It's going to be repetitive. You're going to expect them to be good. They're going to expect you to be good. Efficient metas are going to develop. People are just not going to have a good time. And after a while of playing a really bad competitive game, many people, myself included, are going to say, hey, why don't I play an actually fun competitive game? Because apparently Dead by Daylight isn't a fun horror game anymore. It's worth mentioning right now that Dead by Daylight has a really thriving Twitch community, and the reason it does is because of its horror aspect of the game, where you can be matched with people very high or very low under your skill level. I mean, I've gotten run for 5 gens when I was learning Killer by Fog Whispers. It connected me to new communities. I made friends. You can say goodbye to all of that. If you're a new person on Twitch who's really good at the game, you're going to have a much harder time reaching new players who want to make friends with you and learn from you and join your community, because you're simply not going to get matched up with them. It's going to really suffocate the online community, and if you're not already an established person like Otstarva or Otofu or whoever, this will no longer be a good game to start out on Twitch or YouTube, and that is something that would be really sad to see happen. Now, I'm not even saying that Spirit's my least favorite killer to go against. She's actually not, and it is funny to win coin tosses or make educated mind games. I've got a couple of them that work occasionally. I'm just saying I wouldn't want to do it every game, especially if they understand that they're always going to be going against really good survivors. Out of necessity, they're not even bad people. They're going to have to, camp hooks and tunnel off hooks, and when I play killer, I'm going to have to give up most of the fun shenanigans and meme builds and meme killers, and I actually don't want to play competitive Dead by Daylight. I don't want to be forced to. It's not fun. The game's funnest when it's got hijinks, unpredictability, variety, horror, spice. It's not fun on a competitive level, and quite frankly, most of competitive Dead by Daylight is just making memorized decisions with memorized maps and doing memorized robotic actions. And if I wanted to play a competitive game, and I've got plenty to choose from, it wouldn't be this one. Really, part of what makes Dead by Daylight so great and such a good horror game, is that you're not always a team working together, and trying to force that with MMR or rage at teammates that sandbag you, it's like that. I'm sorry, that's the horror experience. Sometimes you let someone die because you're scared, and like, oh, he should have done this, he should have done that. Like, nonsense. It's a horror game. They literally have a perk called self-preservation, where they're reminding people and encouraging them to say, hey, you could totally look out for number one and quote unquote throw the game to save your own skin. This isn't a competitive team game. You enter a trial and you have your own priorities, you make your own decisions, and you do it with a wide range of skill, just like a real horror movie. It's what makes the game so great. It's not supposed to be where you expect your teammates to play efficiently all the time. Like, that's not the magic of the game. Like, I just, without beating a dead horse, I can't stress enough. It's not a symmetrical game. It's not a competitive game. It's not a team game. Like I said, you have your own personality, your own things you want to accomplish, and sometimes that means dying on first hook because someone brought a key and they left you to die. Sorry, sucks, feels bad. Move on to the next trial, I guess, because MMR isn't going to solve your problem. Trying to force everyone to work efficiently as a team and not get matched with quote-unquote bad players, you're just going to limit the game, you're going to narrow the game down, it's going to boil it down to its mathematical competitive essence, and everyone is going to find out that its mathematical competitive essence, when it's played as sweaty as possible by both sides every single match, is a really subpar game. I won't want to play it. I think you'll probably get bored of it. I don't think anyone's going to enjoy it. Maybe one guy. I won't mention names, but people who are really focused on winning and like camping hooks with a certain killer to do it might have a good time. Other than that one person, I don't know. I don't think anyone's going to like it. And here's what the Lord of Corn and Memes has to say about MMR, a little bit about what he had to say, I should say.
You're not going to feel that great. You feel like whenever you get a win, oh darn, now I get to go into an even sweatier lobby.
Oh, well, you know what? I lost the rest of the B-roll. Looks like we're out of time. I've already said a mouthful about MMR. I, or probably anyone else, could talk about this for 2 hours. I'm just happy that you loaned me about 10 minutes of your time. So, let me know in the comments what you think about MMR. If I've totally missed the mark, or even if you think it'll be a good thing. And roll the outro.